Both Britain and Ireland have called in Israeli ambassadors to explain the misuse of their country's passports in the assassination in Dubai of Hamas commander Mahmoud al-Mabhouh.
Well, I'm very angry about it and I'm very concerned. It's a very, very serious issue. It puts the security of Irish citizens at risk.
So far, the police have made little headway in tracking the members of the hit squad who used identity fraud to carry out the killing. But that's not surprising, for in America alone, 1 in 20 people are thought to be victims of identity fraud, at a cost to them of a total of $54 billion.
This is a global problem that there's really not one specific agency focusing on it, but as you unpack each one of these horrendous international events, whether it be Abdul the Nigerian on the flight coming into Detroit to the Dubai incident, it all begins with identity fraud in some capacity.
Colin Chapman, welcoming you to Agenda with Fred Burton. The Dubai assassination in an upscale hotel has highlighted the problem of identity fraud.
Identity fraud is a very, very difficult issue. You have entities such as the State Department's Diplomatic Security Service that have very specific agents assigned to U.S. embassies abroad with a laser focus on identity fraud. Every one of the cases that I've ever worked have always had a component of identity fraud. You can look at the 9/11 hijackers, you can look at basic visa fraud, but in essence, if you start thinking about it as a signature crime of pretty much any kind of international criminal conspiracy or espionage conspiracy, it all boils down to identity fraud at its base level.
The Dubai assassination also highlighted the role of surveillance cameras. Although the killers could wear wigs and other forms of disguise, their faces are exposed, and the latest biometric technology and face recognition software allows a digitized photo of a suspect's face to be matched with a file photo, rather like fingerprints. In Australia, passengers arriving at Sydney Airport can scan their passport picture page into a machine, and the photo is compared with a photograph of their face taken on the spot. If the two match, the passenger can enter the country without engaging with an immigration officer.
It's a fascinating development if you look over the course of technology in this arena. The ability to utilize these surveillance cameras that you may have deployed not only at airports but in hotels or even on the streets of London or Beijing or Mexico City for that matter, and utilize that to actually surveil people as they travel through the streets. If you digress back in time on how this was a very labor-intensive and manpower-driven responsibility, now you can have an individual sitting in a command post using facial recognition software and literally map that person's movements, provided you have the technology, the cameras deployed in the areas that you want covered. So there's a lot of issues with this, Colin, as you and I both know, from privacy concerns to the sharing of citizen data with other nations. But from an intelligence tool, this has been a wonderful development in the world of espionage and counterterrorism.
I'm Marla Dial with a look at the week ahead. The weekend brought the first of several agricultural protests in Argentina and a tour by U.S. Special Envoy Richard Holbrooke to parts of Central Asia. His tour also takes him on to Georgia and Germany in the coming week. Also, Pakistan's foreign minister began a 4-day visit to China, and Russia's foreign minister was discussing areas of cooperation with Kazakhstan. Monday brings talks in Washington with the national security chief from Georgia and an assessment of the alliance between Turkey and Azerbaijan. Nagorno-Karabakh is a concern for both, and it features in discussions when an EU special envoy visits Azerbaijan on Tuesday. On Wednesday, the presidents of Lebanon and Yemen will be in Russia, while Zambia's president is in China, and the French president begins a tour of several African states with a stop in Rwanda. In Europe, investors will be watching the performance of a bond auction in Portugal and demonstrations from the two biggest unions in Greece. Inauguration ceremonies for a new president in Ukraine are planned for Thursday, And the week wraps up with yet another agricultural protest in Argentina.